Welcome to the Be All You Can Be MSC, a podcast dedicated to empowering Army Medical Service Corps officers and professionals like you. I'm your host, Stephanie Moore. On today's episode of the Be All You Can Be MSC podcast, it is a great privilege today and an all-time first. I have two guests on today. Our two very special guests are currently going through the Army Congressional Fellowship program. It is an Army program. It is 44 months in length and includes the pursuit of a master's degree in legislative affairs at George Washington University. You also get to serve on the staff of a member of Congress, including then a utilization either on the Army or Joint Staff in legislative affairs type duty. With great pleasure, I welcome today Major Joel Daly and Captain Kirk Proctor. So both of you, welcome. We're going to jump right into the questions. And the first one is, Kirk, can you please tell us a little bit about you and your Army experience?
Yes. First of all, thank you for this opportunity and thank you for inviting me on this podcast. I'm from year group 15. My first assignment was a Bavaria medic as a material manager and later on as a facility manager on that part of Germany. After a few months of doing that, I then went to the 70 kilo course and I got introduced to requisitioning process, stock control, warehouse operations. During that course, I was able to put my name in a hat for a deployment opportunity to serve as the 70 kilo for the Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa. It was a 12-month deployment overseeing a 11-country AOR from Camp Lemonnier, Djibouti. Similar to the BSO or Group Supply Officer, but just for the Combined Joint Task Force. That experience was very integral to me as a kilo today, as it was less on material, but more on Class 8B, blood material, and also medical maintenance, the scheduled and the unscheduled services to include bench stock. After 12 months there, I then returned to Europe and became executive officer for a Dentec over 5 clinics in the area. Did that for a year, and then I went to Fort Gregg Adams as a PCS move to the Logistics Captain's Career Course. Once graduating from the career course, I then PCS'd overseas again to South Korea to the 65th Medical Brigade, where I took command of the 563rd Medical Logistics Company. Interesting enough, even though we're under the 65th Medical Brigade, the company at that time was OPCON 2 USAMCK, the TLAM within Korea. So we were able to tie the industrial base, DLA, Cardinal Health, Owens and Miners down through the tactical level, which was very insightful as global developments such as the COVID-19 pandemic and all the peninsula exercises that occur within the AOR. 19 months in command, I then handed over the guidon, became the chief of customer support at USAMCK, overseeing the customer requisitions, the do-in, do-out process, and got much experience with the Defense Working Capital Fund. And from there, I was then accepted into the DoD Army Congressional Fellowship program, which I'm a member of now.
And how long have you been in that program, Kirk?
I am currently within the second phase of the program. Let me see. It's been almost 20 months now. Yes.
So almost halfway there. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today. And Joel, over to you. Now, I know you have a much different background than Kirk, so I would love for you to share a little bit of your experience as well.
Hey, absolutely, ma'am. And for starters, thanks for doing this podcast. You've had great guests on so far, and this is such a needed resource for our med service community. So thanks for what you're doing. Like you, I'm a 70 kilo, I'm a medical logistics officer. I commissioned out of the University of North Georgia in 2009. I spent my entire career in MTO units or in school, nearly split evenly between conventional and special operations organizations. So I'll break that out a little bit for everyone. I started in the 2nd Brigade, 10th Mountain Division. I did the typical lieutenant jobs. I was an evacuation platoon leader. I was a medical operations officer in an infantry battalion. Then I was the BCT med planner. I was there that I deployed with the Charlie Med to Iraq, where our Evac platoon provided ambulance support to all the BSB's logistics convoys. Next assignment was down to Fort Liberty, where I worked in a USASOC support unit called the 528th Sustainment Brigade. I did 2 years of 90 Alpha, so regular logistics work there. First, I was a battalion S4. I didn't get fired, so then I became the Brigade S4. So sometimes success gets a little more work. Next, I went down to Fort Gregg Adams and attended the Logistics Captain's Career Course. After that, I went on to the 2nd Cavalry Regiment in Vilseck, Germany. So I did a short stint there in the support operations section, and then I took FSC command in the Field Artillery Squadron. The Army is an incredibly small world, and that's actually where I first met our other guest, Kirk Proctor here. So from my time in Germany with Kirk, I applied for the 75th Ranger Regiment at Fort Moore. Was able to spend nearly 3 years there as the Regimental Medical Operations Officer and deployed with them 3 times to Afghanistan. I think it's important to mention that towards the end of my FSC command, I was pretty sure that I was going to branch transfer to logistics. I was really well versed in 90 Alpha roles, and like many other med service officers growing up in BC, I had more logistics mentors than I had AMED mentors. But my time with the Rangers, it really changed my mind. I was completely sold on Army medicine and what we can do for the ground forces after my time there. Following my time at the Rangers, I went on to resident CGSC at Fort Leavenworth, which I highly recommend to anyone that has the opportunity. Then I returned to Fort Liberty for an assignment with Joint Special Operations Command, in particular in a small but incredible unit there called the Joint Medical Unit. There I served as an operations officer and did another Afghanistan deployment and one no-notice crisis response mission. I also served in the command's surgeon cell as their lead planner. And then, like Kirk, applied for and was accepted into the Army Congressional Fellowship and have been here for about 8 months now, and looking forward to January when I start on Capitol Hill in a member's office.
Well, thank you for sharing that wealth of experience that both of you have. I think it's always great to hear the variety of experience because it just goes to show that there is not a true like cookie cutter map to success in your career, and you both ended up in the same opportunity. So thank you both for highlighting that. And so our next question is going to go to Kirk, since you've been in a little bit longer in this program, but what exactly is a Congressional Fellow and what do they do?
Sure. I'll start off with the broader view about the program and then go into the role as a Congressional Fellow and what we do on the Hill. So the Congressional Fellowship program is split into 3 phases. The first phase is a 9-month graduate school phase at George Washington University at the Graduate Political School of Management, where we earn a Master's of Professional Studies in Legislative Affairs. It's unique in that at most other academic institutions, your professor is an academic. They study, they research from a distance on where a lot of the policy crafting takes place. Whereas at George Washington University, where we studied, the professors, they are practitioners during the day, either as consultants or congressional staffers or lobbyists or an active player within the political mix. And then in the evening, at night, they're professors. So we get that enriching experience from the professor aspect, but also from your peers and classmates within the room. During my 9 months at GW, many of my classmates were DoD Army fellows, but also lobbyists, consultants, public school teachers, and congressional staffers as well. So it was a very enriching experience, those 9 months at George Washington University. After those 9 months, you then got sent to Capitol Hill for a 12 months where you're assigned and you're reporting directly to a member of Congress's office. So you're in their office, you're a member of their staff, and there you do a variety of things. You're given a portfolio, give recommendations on policy areas that you're assigned to, and you prepare the member for a plethora of things. I'll say while on the Hill, about 85 to 90% of my time and the other staffers' time is dedicated towards research and policy analysis. Within my office, within my portfolio, I have defense as a defense fellow, foreign affairs, veteran affairs, and also constituent inquiries. And so anytime there is a upcoming event or there is policy talk with something arising in my portfolio, my chief of staff, the legislative director, and sometimes even the member himself will expect me to answer it. So, for example, I'm an Army Congressional Fellow, but I still will have to respond to questions pertaining to Navy aircraft carriers or the Space Force's constellations or what's happening in Armenia and Azerbaijan as we speak. The next thing that we also do as fellows, we do prepare speeches and prepare the member themselves for congressional meetings, markups to craft policy, floor speeches, and also when they engage one-on-one with either military leaders or foreign diplomats. And for the policy crafting side, it's either way the member wants it. We assist them in providing oversight, one of the constitutional authorities that Congress is given through letters or press hits or reporting requirements, or policy crafting in the traditional sense, in which assist in the process of drafting bills with the aim to become law, but also sometimes as messaging tools to confirm the member's philosophy to the public and constituents. Now, the third phase of the program is 24 months long, and it's called our utilization, in which we leave the member's office to go report directly to the Army staff in one of several areas, either as a liaison on the Hill, either as a portfolio owner in the programs division, an account owner within the budgeting or staff and bull division, or within an officer within the congressional operations division. So there's a wealth of opportunities within this fellowship, post grad school, post time on Capitol Hill.
Thank you for that very detailed breakdown. And it's fascinating to hear how it's very progressional. They start with that foundational knowledge and exposing you even with the professors. So I also can sense that you have like a real passion for some of this, Kirk. So I would be curious, what is your favorite part so far that you've experienced?
Oh, I've had many favorite parts. I think one of the most memorable experience, I'll share this one. It was back in February, beginning of the Congress session, and across everybody's email, the House of Foreign Affairs Committee, they summoned Secretary of the State Blinken to testify in front of Congress. Well, at that time, our foreign policy advisor was out. So my very first preparation session with the member I'm assigned to was for the Secretary of State. And so drafting the policies, comparing press hits with what was actually in the budget request, trying to find the consistencies, the inconsistencies, the areas to improve on, putting that into a package that the member can read easily, question, expect an answer, give it to him for him to take that from me and then ask that to the administration. That was pretty memorable. And I will say the other half of that was just the opportunity to attend the State of the Union address later that same month, back this previous February. Two experiences that I don't think I could have attained anywhere else.
I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate the passion that I'm sensing as you're sharing this. It's almost, I feel like I can visualize it myself. So thanks again, Kirk. So Joel, I know you are only in phase 1, so I'm sure your favorite part is the studying right now you're doing, but I will also ask you the same. What's either your favorite part so far, or what are you looking forward to the most?
I think for me, like many other places I've been in the military, the best part is the people. As Kirk's talking about, your professors are all interesting. They all have decades of experience doing very nuanced things. I had a professor that basically wrote the Affordable Care Act, right? So you're talking with people that were in the room where it happened. And you got these classmates that are just ambitious public servants, political appointees in the administration. And one of my current professors is a former member of Congress for 16 years. So you're just blessed to be surrounded by this talent. You look around and pinch yourself every once in a while and go, how did I get here? It's pretty incredible to me just to be in the presence of excellence.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Joel. And so our next question I'm going to give to you, Joel, since you are more newer to the program. So how do you go about, for our listeners out there, applying to this program, and when does that application window come around?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question because it's actually a part of the Army that I think maybe some people in AMED don't know that much about. And it's called the BOP catalog. So we all know about the AIM marketplace. A lot of us know about long-term health education and training, or LFET, but the Army's Broadening Opportunities program catalog. So the BOP catalog is another gem, and it has a whole series of other opportunities. It's published every year and posted on the HRC's website. So you can go on there, and in the search box, you can type BOP catalog and you'll find it. And in addition to the Congressional Fellowship, it includes things like the White House Fellowship, the CGSC Interagency Fellowship, Artificial Intelligence Scholars Program, and all sorts of other different opportunities, some at different rank levels, some even can support our enlisted MOSs. So all different things in there, and each of them has its own application timeline and requirements. So the catalog, so for applying the Congressional Fellowship, applications are due in March, basically 1 year out before you start. So the catalog lists everything that you need. It's pretty straightforward. It has things like your evaluations, so your OERs and your AERs, your record brief, your 2 letters of recommendation, a PT card. One unique thing is a writing sample. So they want to see if you're an effective communicator. There's an HRC panel, and then packets that test favorably to HRC then get sent to DC, and OCLL, so the Office of the Chief Legislative Liaison, they start to rack and stack, and they'll even conduct interviews. So they'll do a phone or Microsoft Teams interview. And then, like many things in the military, you patiently wait for the list to be published. So yeah, that's March, basically 12 months out before you would be PCSing to DC. You're submitting your BOP catalog application for the Army Congressional Fellowship.
And how long after that did you actually find out that you were accepted into the fellowship?
It took me probably about 7 months. So I actually started to enter the next AIM cycle. So I did the AIM cycle for about a week or 2 before I received that favorable assessment from them. So their goal is to have it out before the AIM cycle, but of course nothing's guaranteed. And if you have a YMAV of summer of whatever year and it's time for you to enter the AIM cycle, you better do it. So there are some career timing things you do need to consider when applying. And one thing you'll see in the catalog is there are windows and times when officers can apply. So for example, there's a criteria for senior NCOs. There's criteria for warrant officers. And then for commissioned officers, it's pretty much post-company command. But if you're applying as a major, you need to be post-KD or post-ILE. So there are some windows in time where you can apply, and it's not unlimited.
Great. I appreciate that. And then one last clarifying question. Did you all have to take your GRE or GMAT?
So I did not need to take a GRE or a GMAT. I do believe there is if you're undergraduate or previous graduate GPA is below a certain level, then you would be required to submit one. But I think as long as it was 2.9 or 3.0, you'd be all set with no GRE.
Well, that's good to know, because I know that's why a lot of people avoid our long-term health education master's programs, is for that very reason.
Right. I think the GPA cutoff just to get your application through the door is 2.8. And then if it's that or lower, you do have to take the GMAT or GRE. But another point to consider is, as a captain applying to the program, after the program is complete, myself, and the other captains in my cohort will be attending satellite ILE at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Whereas if you apply as a major, you are most likely ILE complete, and you've probably performed well enough to attend resident ILE at CGSC and go on to continue your career to then apply to this program. So just another thing to consider as far as which rank or where in your career timeline you would like to apply for the program.
Great point. And I appreciate you bringing that up. So thank you both for that breakdown of this opportunity and the application process. So our next question, and I'm going to pose this to Kirk first and then over to Joel, but what insights are you gaining that you can bring back to the force with you, Kirk?
There's so many, but I would say that the one I would like to mention is that policy changes sitting here, policy changes are often directed by Congress, not so much within the DoD. Within the DoD, of course, like the Secretary of Defense and the service secretaries do write policies, and there are trickle down throughout the force. But those are policy in the service sense. Here within Congress, Congress has their hands deep into policy crafting towards the services, but through legislation, which legislation will trump any executive policy that's in place. And so we've seen this before with the Defense Health Agency role in overseeing the MTFs back in 2016, or the medical malpractice appeals process within the DoD that was outlined in the 2019-20 NDAA, or also the different oversight mechanisms Congress has when it pertains to the Defense Working Capital Fund. A year ago or 2 years ago, when I was at the company level with my soldiers in Korea, I just assumed that many of the changes within the Army, within the DoD occurred within the service. But now, a year forward, being in this position, turns out that's not the case. And it's Congress as always crafting and developing the service and the department in ways they are constitutionally allowed in the ways they see fit.
Yeah, it's definitely behind the scenes to the Wizard of Oz, if you will. So it's nice to hear your revelations that you're having in that opportunity. So I'm going to pose the same question to you, Joel. What insights are you gaining that you feel like you can take back to the force with you?
I think along a similar line, it's really helping give me a better understanding of how the sausage is made and really how we can effectively communicate with Congress to improve the delivery of health service support and force health protection. So one example I'll hear with regards to congressional delegations or staff delegations where people from Congress maybe go out to your installation, visit your unit. One thing they'll say is that, hey, you need to tell us where we can help you. We ask you about what authorities or resources you need, and you just tell us everything's going great. So they can't help you if you're not honest and open with them. So really just be candid with them and their staffs. Don't just show them a task organization slide and tell them everything's going well. If you need them to help craft some of that policy that Kirk is referring to, just help them out. Let them know what you're seeing on the ground in the Pacific or in Europe or at Fort Cavazos. So just show them what they need to see and tell them what they should hear.
No, I think that's absolutely great advice because I don't think a lot of officers have had the opportunity to have the insights that both of you are gaining. And it's true. Oftentimes we have these VIPs that come and they'll tour the installation or they come to meet your organization. And they always ask that question. And I think the due diligence now needs to be on the organizations we need to be doing some, if you will, analysis on our organization and the things that we see as challenges or shortfalls so that we can provide better packaged recommendations that feed the policy then. And I think it's key to know that each organization actually does have a voice if you think about it in that manner, that you have an opportunity then to speak to that congressman or that representative that comes to your organization. Like, that's your one chance and you better take it. Not to sound like Eminem here, but so thank you for bringing that up. So I'm going to jump over to the next question then. This one I'll go to you, Joel, first. What's the one thing that you've learned from the fellowship that has surprised you so far?
I think, like many people, many other listeners here, most of my exposure to politics has been through the news or through social media. And so I've been pleasantly surprised to witness how reasonable and bipartisan people on the Hill and all throughout Washington, D.C. are. Just phenomenal talent across the board and a lot of great intention, just trying to solve the nation's problems. So to me, it's been very eye opening and a little light of optimism coming through for me.
Well, that's very refreshing to hear because it is very dramatized, especially when you turn on the media today. So, Kirk, the same question for you. What is the one thing you've learned so far that has surprised you?
Oh, yes, several things. The way that overall policy and the lawmaking process as a whole, from idea to inception to written draft to bill to, okay, it passes the House, it passes the Senate, oh, it gets kicked back. That whole process was a real surprise to me, as I was one of the individuals that my exposure to politics was through traditional or social media via phone, computer, or TV. The second thing that surprised me being on the Hill for almost a year is the amount of young people actually involved in that process. Again, a year, 2, 3 years ago, I assumed that it was a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, middle-aged people really working to solve these issues. But I come on the Hill, and there are still people from that age group, but there are a lot more young people giving their presence and working to solve the nation's problems and to improve the welfare of Americans. So that was a surprise to me. And it speaks to public service in a way. The third thing I will say that this is an environment where we craft policies, and being a defense fellow, how members do their best to craft policies in a way that's advantageous to the military, but how much that these members do want to hear from leaders in the service. They do want to hear from leaders of organizations, because at the end of the day, they're crafting policy or providing oversight in a way that can help us and our mission.
Now, thank you very much for very well put, Kirk. And you both are honestly really exciting me about the fact that this opportunity exists. I knew it was out there, but I've actually never really spoken to someone one-on-one about what it's like. And it makes me very proud to not only serve in the military, but to be an American, because I did not originally grow up in this country. And I feel like I'm getting goosebumps listening to you both talk about some of your insights you're gaining. So I appreciate you sharing. So I'm going to throw in a last minute question that I thought of while we were talking. So please don't be mad at me. I'm going to put you both on the spot. I'd be curious, and I'll throw it back to you, Kirk, first. What is the camaraderie like with the other fellows or even the members you serve with? I know you both know each other, but you're at different phases. But what's the camaraderie like with the other officers?
Sure, yeah, yeah. So I go with the officers first. The camaraderie in my cohort is pretty tight. The cohort before me, I don't think they were, from what I hear and from what I've seen and from what I observed, they started their time within the program during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it didn't seem like from what they said, they didn't get that time to really form teams as well, as it was a social distancing environment. Whereas in our cohort, we really like make a deliberate effort to come get together as a cohort, form those teams early on, and which we assisted each other throughout the graduate program and even here on the Hill. Side of my cohort with the other services, those relationships are still there, though you have to put a little bit of effort, as the Navy fellows, the Marine fellows, the Air Force Space Force fellows are outside of our sphere, but we do get to interact with them on a day-to-day basis, as our members are on the same committees, or as we're going to the same briefings, or we're going to the same blocks of instruction on how the budget works, for that matter. Within the office, it's a little bit different. My experience specifically, the staff here is very family oriented. We have get togethers within the office, hail and farewells, something parallel or mirroring what we do in the Army. And we do have events outside of the office as well. But it's not, as a fellow, you're a little bit more guarded, being that we cannot take part in any partisan conversation or any partisan activities. So that's there, but as a fellow, you know your place and have your
left and right limits.
yeah, left or right limits where, and what conversations you could partake in or what activities you could attend. So yeah, but it's definitely there. It's definitely a good group. I will say the DoD and the service as a whole, they do a good job in bringing some high quality officers with good character into the program.
All right. And Joel, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's your experience been with the camaraderie with the other fellows so far?
Yeah, I think it's been awesome. And we've even had great camaraderie with Kirk's class ahead of us. We had a big cookout at one of the guys' houses on a weekend, and it was brought the 2 years all together. And so get to learn from each other's experience, make friends, talk about the offices. So when we're making our 1 to N list on which office we want to go to, we have a better informed decision. So been to a couple cookouts with the previous cohort. Just internal to my cohort, we'll do happy hour after class each once a week. We get invites to think tanks. So I've gone to different think tanks in DC and sat next to my classmates and listened to experts in any different area talk about what's happening in the world and what their recommended solution is to solve it. So everyone has their own goals here, and DC is a big area, and a lot of people live in different directions. Someone that lives in downtown might go running every week with someone else, or someone that lives an hour outside of DC. They have friends or kids meet up at a park on the weekend. So to me, it's pretty incredible. And in particular, much like people that do school of choice programs for LFET, they really find that, in particular, the school portion is a great opportunity to hit a reset button on anything, whether it's your health, it's your family life, it's more personal development. So it's a really phenomenal opportunity for everyone to connect in their own way.
Yeah, I appreciate you both entertaining my on-the-spot question, because I think it speaks volumes that this program could sound relatively intimidating. It's definitely a long program, and also you have implications if you don't do your research well, or if you give bad advice on some of the policy structure, or being one of the people that gives input and does the research. That's a lot of pressure. So it's good to know that you're not alone on an island out there, and that it's a team effort, and that you guys have been able to have each other's backs. So very refreshing to hear, and I appreciate you both entertaining that question. So we're going to get to some fun here as we wrap this up. I'm going to give it over to you first, Joel. What is the best career advice you've ever either received or given?
All right. For me, it's something I've done a lot of thinking about and something that I've tried to embody. But my personal stance is that career paths aren't that important. And so, yes, of course, you want to understand what the DAPM or Army Medicine senior leaders say for promotion, schooling, things like that. But I think it's important that you don't get caught up in the details or try to mirror their career perfectly. You can take control of your Army career. So, of course, there's some risk with charting your own course on that, but there's also a risk of being miserable, aiming for someone else's definition of success. Break that down into 3 things that are important to me. One is 5-year plans. I think they are an incredibly valuable tool to think about timelines and options, but I think it's really important that you don't get married to them in particular. So just love the process. The opportunities are going to present themselves at very unique times, and there's an incredible value in saying yes, trying something new. Also, like, your life circumstances are going to change. So you're going to change the target you're aiming at. You might get married, divorced, birth of a child, loss of a loved one. Goals are going to change. You might realize your future potential is either really increased or it's really diminished, and you're just going to want to adjust. Number 2, just don't self-select. So this includes with the Army Congressional Fellowship or any other job. Don't self-select, meaning let the unit that you're applying for or the program you're applying for deny you. Don't be afraid to put your name in the hat. So don't take yourself out before you've even had the chance to compete. And then finally is, do what you find like very meaningful and enjoyable, and you'll thrive there. So I was at a presentation, heard the former NGA director, Vice Admiral Sharp, speak. He talked about he was outlining all the different points in his career that he went against the Navy's advice. So for him, he was seeing that we're a nation at war, and he's going to support where he thinks he can do best. And if the Navy didn't like that, they could pass him over. And so for me, that really encapsulated how I felt at many different points in my career. It's not about being closed-minded to new opportunities or ignoring the importance of, for example, force-generating assignments, but it's about pursuing your passion and what you think you can add the most value to the Army in. So at the end of the day, you have to live with your career decisions. So just make choices and have fun.
Well, thank you for that insightful advice, Joel, and sharing a piece of you. So, Kirk, I'm going to toss this one over to you. What's the best career advice you've ever received or given?
Sure. For me, that's my response is a three-pronged response. The first one is identify avenues to improve whatever organization you're in, and then implement systems of continuity to keep those improvements going. The Army, the military as a whole, they understand that each officer, each individual is different, and we all come from different backgrounds, experience, and insights. And so when we're within these organizations, we see the problem set or opportunities or risk similar to one another, but a little bit different. And it's those backgrounds and experience that we have that we bring to the table that offer each and every one of us the opportunity to improve things in a certain way that maybe somebody else couldn't see. And then stamp that with systems continuities to make sure that even after you leave, the organization as a whole is still successful by what you contributed to it. The second thing I would say is I think a lot of the times we get stuck being or officers in general get stuck trying to be the best officer within the organization versus being the best officer for the organization. Those two sound alike, just like, I don't know, waffle mixes, like pancake mix. But once you get into the nick of things, they're different, and they are different. They have two different purposes. You could be the best officer in the organization or for the one for the organization is again going to look to improve systems beyond his or her time within the organization, look to build those teams of mutual trust and to see how to better get after the commanders and higher levels intent. Right. And I think the third piece of advice I would say is find the opportunities in discomfort. Many times there are opportunities that come our way that many of us will dismiss because it doesn't seem shiny or comfortable or lucrative for that moment in time. But we often don't realize how that opportunity or that chance may bring us or take us where we like to go 2-3 years down the road. So when I was in Germany, when I went to the Kilo course from there, there was a tasker that came out that wanted 70 kilo in the ranks of major and above to put their names in a hat to go and be the Kilo for combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa. As a lieutenant, I put my name in the hat in there. I knew it was going to be a 12-month deployment. I knew it was an actual deployment instead of a TDY, and I knew the hardships that came with it, but I was more chasing that experience of being a part of a combined Joint Task Force, doing my job overseas, and then all the experiences and the development I would get from that. And then the same goes to with my time in Korea. And so, yeah, I think that if you find those opportunities in a situation that is momentarily uncomfortable or provides discomfort, but you seek the silver lining within, good things will come your way.
Well, excellent advice from you both. And Kirk, now I think I'll be making pancakes this weekend because that's all I can think about now that you mentioned pancakes. But I appreciate both of you gave some excellent advice. And so for our last and fun question, I'm going to kick it to you, Kirk, and then over to Joel. But tell us one fun fact about you. And if you don't have one, just tell us your favorite ice cream.
I can't think of a fun fact right now, so I'll answer the latter question. My favorite ice cream is peaches and cream. It's hard to get. They're unique. It's seasonal because peaches are harvested in the summer. So yeah, peaches and cream is my favorite ice cream.
Okay, that's a first. I haven't had it. I've had a lot of chocolate chip ones and chocolate chip mint. So the first one for peaches and cream. Well, thank you, Kirk. And Joel, fun fact about you or your favorite ice cream.
All right, I'll stick with the fun fact for tonight. So, interesting thing, I was my college's mascot. So, when I was at North Georgia, we were the Saints, and so I was a Saint Bernard. So dressed up in a dog costume and go cheer on our sports.
Nice. So I'm questioning. I think some of the universities now they keep it a secret who's the mascot. So were you a secret mascot, or could you actually say that you were the mascot?
Oh, it was a small school with no football, so we didn't really have a strict code of silence or anything like that. So I think a lot of people knew.
Nice. Well, listen, since I've never had two guests on, I am gonna open one more time. Any last thoughts, Kirk?
Actually, at the time on the Hill, as a fellow, we're not necessarily advising a member of Congress on matters pertaining to DOD or the Army or any of the services, but we're more that nexus point for the member to contact to then pull information, insights, and knowledge from the DOD to share with the member of Congress. We do share experiences, but we don't necessarily speak for the DOD or Department of the Army itself.
I appreciate you making that clarifying point. So thank you very much for that. And Joel, any last thoughts?
First of all, really just thank you again for doing this podcast. It's incredible for the community. And second, I hope anyone out there listening knows that they can reach out to me, Kirk, or anyone about any question about this program or, of course, any of our former assignments. So look forward to hearing from anyone.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've gotten to speak to you both individually before, but having two incredible professionals who are doing amazing things in their career, but not only that, but you both are super passionate and you care, and that really matters and it resonates. So I appreciate you sharing your journey that you're on. I wish you both the best, and I hope you both have a very good evening. Thank you for joining us. Don't miss the next episode of the Be All You Can Be MSC podcast. Subscribe now and join our vibrant community of ambitious professionals who are taking their careers to the next level. The opinions shared on this podcast are the personal opinions of the guests and the hosts. They do not reflect the official position of the Medical Service Corps, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government.